You were recording to the cloud, Joe?
I am.
Okay. Which now we have to take that out, but okay.
Thank you for those just joining us. We're letting people file into the webinar. Looks like we've got quite the crew of folks popping in today. If you'd like, you can familiarize yourself with the Zoom controls before we really get into the meeting. You'll find a chat. That's good for talking to the hosts and panelists. We'd love to hear from you. If you wish to say who you are and where you're from, that does give us a nice feeling for maybe some of the topics we might go into as we're looking at through EDDMapS. So let us know in the chat who you are and where you're from. You'll also see a Q&A down there at the bottom. That's for questions. If you have questions throughout the presentation, I highly recommend putting them there. It's way better than the chat because we actually have to look at every single question that comes in and answer it, which is a little better than the chat, where it can sometimes get a little lost between people saying hi and everything else. So got just about one more minute before we get started. So if you want to say hi in the chat, we have some folks from Utah, apparently. Looks like some folks from Ohio. Gotta love those Ohioans. I'm one of them. Got some folks from Canada. I do love our neighbors to the north. And the eastern shore of Virginia. Always fun just to see how far away the folks come from for these different webinars we have. The joy of running a system that works across pretty much all of North America. Keeps us busy.
So this is the first in a sort of series we're doing. So we're introducing the basic concepts of EDDMapS in this webinar, this office hours. March, we're going to be talking about more advanced features of EDDMapS. So some of the things that some of the people I can see in our attendee list are probably already using. And then in April, we'll have the EDDMapS Summit. So these two office hours kind of give people a background introduction to EDDMapS. And then the summit, we're going to be talking about new things, coming soon things, things we've done kind of in the last year since the last summit.
And coming up in March, we actually have another webinar. We're partnering with the Southern IPM Center. We're going to talk about the ag applications that come within EDDMapS. So a little bit of something for everybody. We are now at 11 o'clock and we do really want to respect everybody's time because, yeah, it's very precious. Not enough of it to go around.
And this webinar, as with our other webinars, is being recorded. So if people do show up late or can't attend, it will be put on our training page for later viewing.
So our presenter today, largely Rebecca Wallace. She is our EDDMapS project and data coordinator. If you have ever sent a bulk upload, each piece of data went through her fingers. As she looked at it, went, yep, looks good. So take it away, Rebecca.
Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be going over the basic, this is what EDDMapS is. Some of you are probably looking at your names again. Some of you are very familiar with EDDMapS, but for those who aren't as familiar, it's a platform for reporting invasive and pest species. There's also, as you can see at the top of the screen there, species information. So it's a little bit of a lot of things, but it's all centered around knowing about and where these types of species are. When it started in 2005, it had a southeastern focus, and pretty much exclusively an invasive species focus, but since then it's expanded in geographic scope as well as, I guess you could say, topical or taxonomic scope to, again, include some of those pest species. So that's what it kind of started as. I'll be going over in this webinar these tabs at the top here, and within those tabs, some additional information. Again, we're not going into the, advanced features. This is a very, intro session. In March, we'll go over some of the advanced features. So on the front page, you'll see this image rotating, very pretty images. As you scroll down, you get some information about the different features that exist for EDDMapS, some basic educational resources. Okay, sorry, I wasn't expecting to see a person there. I'll have to look into that record to see what's going on. As Joe said, data manager, as well as just overall doing other things. You can sign up for alerts. You can see first in county, first in state information to see where things are being reported and verified for the first time. Some basic statistics, and then projects and supporters at the bottom. So that's just the front page. At the top, you'll see we have a number of tabs here for reporting sightings, looking at the distribution maps, species information page. The tools and training is now separated into 2 pages, one specifically for tools, one specifically for training. Those who are longtime EDDMapS users know that those used to be on the same page, but we've added so many things. So those have become 2 separate pages now. The My EDDMapS section, which is all about you. The About section is about the EDDMapS project. About Us is specifically about the EDDMapS and Bugwood staff. So EDDMapS is run by the Center for Invasive Species and Ecosystem Health out of the University of Georgia. We're also known as Bugwood. So this will tell you about the staff. The contact us is to imagine this, contact us. And then this little green icon at the top is the user icon. So if you are not logged in, it'll prompt you to log in, but this is where you access your My Profile, your messages, and to, again, log in and log out. So the messages is a new thing. If I have time in this presentation, I'll mention it. If not, it'll be in the next one in March. So we're going to start with reporting sightings. So the main couple reasons people come to EDDMapS is to report something they found or to see where things are. So those are the first 2 tabs. So we'll look at the report sightings. The first thing it's going to ask you is, what are you reporting, like broadly speaking? So plants, insects, fungi and diseases, and wildlife. The reason it asks you this to begin with is to make sure that the form you're presented with is appropriate for that type of species. Most of the people who come to EDDMapS are reporting plants, so we'll select plants. It'll then ask where. So I'm in Georgia, so I will select Georgia. Okay, that's interesting. Let me see if there it goes. Let's see if I can. Okay, that black bar is gone now. It was just, I have my screen magnified quite a lot so people can see it. So this is the form for reporting species observations. So you'll see as I scroll down, it seems like there's just a whole lot of stuff, but the first thing you see here at the top, this first text under, report, only the red fields are required. The other fields that are in black text are not required. So if you don't know the abundance, if you don't know some of this other information, it's okay. It does not prevent you from reporting these occurrences that you find, these observations you have. You would start by selecting a species. So in this case, we're just going to pick something from the top, but as you start typing in something, it'll start auto-suggesting. So I can actually, as you see, it started winnowing things down to just the things that fit that particular species. So again, I'll just pick something from the top. Infestation, you'll see these little question marks. Those are what's called tooltips. If you hover over them, it'll tell you a little bit of information about that particular either field or option in a field. So positive, I found it. Negative, I did not find it. I looked for it and did not find it. And treated, I found it and performed some sort of control action. So I pulled it up, I sprayed it, I mowed it, whatever. Negative, so negative is important for high priority species. So if we are actively looking for spotted lanternfly or zebra mussels or something like that, it's important to know when we're not finding it. So I looked for and did not find spotted lanternfly in 2017, 2018, 2019, but we found it in let's 2025. You know, it hasn't come to Georgia yet, so let's say sometime in the future. Say I found it in 2025. I'll know that we hadn't found it until then in this particular area, is why negative is an important option. The next thing is observation date. It automatically fills in the current date. You can change that. And then under that, until you get to like location, all of this again is optional. You can elect to fill out infested area, survey area, habitat, and so forth. Once you get down to location, you'll see that it automatically filled in Georgia because that's where I said I'm reporting for. It's going to ask county, and then you can optionally add in either latitude and longitude, or you can draw a point, draw a line, or draw a shape by selecting one of these icons at the top of the map. So if I want to draw a shape, let's just, sorry. Let's say I found in this clearing here, I found, I think it was Aaron's beard. So I'm going to draw a shape. You draw it clockwise. And there it goes. And it's saying, okay, it was found in Dodge County, and the latitude and longitude, if you draw a line or a polygon, it's going to be the center of that shape. If you drop a point, it'll be the exact location. Since I drew a polygon, if I scroll up, you'll see it automatically filled in that infested area in acres. So if you know the shape, you don't have to try to estimate any sort of infested area. You just fill this out and it'll fill that out for you. You can manually enter in latitude and longitude. You can, like I did, manipulate the map to drop a point or draw a shape. Private, it's not, it's kind of in this location section. If you are reporting something on private property, or if for some reason you don't want the public to know where this location is, maybe it's in a sensitive habitat, maybe it's something that people would try to poach for or gather or something like that, you can elect to say private. Yes, private means hide exact coordinates from everyone except administrators. That needs to be updated as well for accepted system and project administrators. So if your data is part of a project, and projects we'll get into next time, the coordinates, the shape it'll just be known at the county level unless you're, again, in a project or it's being reviewed. The next thing are images. So if I'm reporting this species, it doesn't just go onto the website. These records are reviewed by people who've elected to become EDDMapS verifiers, people who are expert in some certain species or certain geographic areas, knowing a lot of the species in those areas. So they review the records, evaluate the accuracy. And if accurate, then they become publicly available. So critical to those becoming publicly available, being reviewed as accurate, are images. The images need to be JPEGs. So you may need to convert the images to JPEGs if they're PNGs or some other format. But you would be able to add the images, and that would very much help the review process for the verifiers. Finally, comments. If a voucher specimen was made, you can put all of that information in. And then when you're done, you would submit your report. And again, it's not going to immediately show up on maps. It's not going to immediately go out as alerts because it needs to be reviewed first. The record will show up in your My EDDMapS section because it's your record. You reported it. It just will say it's not been made publicly available yet. So that's reporting through the website. Once records are publicly available, then they'll show up in the distribution maps section. So the distribution maps allows you to look at a single species map and see where that species is occurring. So we're just going to pick Japanese honeysuckle, and we'll start with state. So this is a map that shows, the legend is on the top right, where the species has been reported as positive. So at least one record in each of these states, and if you hover over, it'll tell you exactly how many positive records. So Washington has 3 compared to Georgia, which has 17,000. I kind of wish I was living in Washington for that, just for the lack of Japanese honeysuckle. So these states, you can click on them and it'll take you to the records in that state. If we go to counties, imagine this, it breaks things up into counties and county equivalents. So you can see the number of positive species reports in that county. Oh, wrong way. So you see every county in Kentucky except Bourbon County is said to have Japanese honeysuckle. So if you're in Bourbon County and you can refute the fact that Bourbon County doesn't have honeysuckle, then feel free to report a record with images. But you'll see that there is a fairly decent kind of line of where this species has been reported, and then it kind of jumps a little bit, and then you can see some scattering of counties out west. You'll see that there's the two reports in King County, and then 1 report in, I'm not going to try to pronounce that county, in Washington. And then again, you can click on the counties and it'll take you to all the reports for that county. So if we click on this county, I clicked on it too fast. King County, it'll show you that there's the 2 reports as you scroll down. If you click on the reports, it'll take you to that individual record page. So going back to the maps, if we then click on points, these are the records that have some sort of publicly available shape. So remember when I was talking about earlier with records that you can make your record private, it will only be known publicly at the county level. So that record would appear on the state map, it would appear on the county map, but once we get to the point map, it doesn't show up anymore because we don't assign a random centroid or whatever so that it would show up on the point map, because we don't want people to be confused as to where these records are. Even if we say that this is a centroid, people could find it confusing and think that's exactly where that record is. So as you'll see in the top right, the legend has changed. We now have positive, treated, eradicated, and negative. You can switch these on and off. So if you just want to see treated, eradicated, and negative, all the positive records are now gone, and so on and so forth. If you scroll in, the clusters will break apart into smaller and smaller numbers of records they represent. If you click on an individual record, you can see a little bit of information about where it came from. So the species, the eradication status, which is the infestation status. It's, again, the positive, I saw it treated, so on and so forth. Where the record came from, like who reported that record, and the observation date. And if we click on this, it'll take us to the record page with all of the information. And so let me do that in a new window for you, so we can see. Yeah, okay. So this will take us to what a record page looks like. So this is actually representing polygons. So there are a lot of polygons that are associated with this record, saying that Japanese honeysuckle is present in all of these different polygons. And again, it tells you more information about how many acres, what types of geographic locations it falls in. So different types of wilderness areas and scenic areas and so forth. If there were images with this record, you would see the images. If there were revisits to this record, those would be here as well. So going back to, so there's also, sorry, let me continue on. There's also the list option, which is just a list of the records. And then there's the species info, which will take you to information about this species. And we can look at that in a minute when we go to the species information page. So going back to counties, with some of the plant records, you'll see that there's 5 buttons. With some of the other records, with all the other records, there'll be 3 buttons. So the county map defaults you to distribution. If we go to record density, because not every record has a infested area or density or whatever, to give some sense of how many records, what the potential kind of visual issue the county has with this particular species, we elected to go with a record density map, the number of records in a county. So if we scroll down, you can see this is a heat map. Again, in the top right, there's the legend with what the different color shades key to. So you'll see that out west, there's a lot of light green, and in the southeast, there's a lot of dark green. So that, again, lets you know that, yes, it is present in the west, but we don't have a lot of data saying it's as large of an issue as it is in the southeast. The literature versus observation, that just tells you kind of where the records come from, if they're coming from a herbarium or like a book or a journal article, compared to coming from an observation database like EDDMapS or some of the other databases and data sources. Then there's also the future range and future certainty maps. These are maps that model where these species will be in future years. I don't think I have time to get into those, but they kind of give you a very basic idea of where, according to up to 13 models, this species is expected to be in the years 2040 to 2060. The future range map is a little bit more complicated. If we have time, I'll get into that later. So then next is species information. Again, let's just look at Japanese honeysuckle. And this is, imagine this information about this particular species. So text information on how to identify it, external resources about this particular species, images from the Bugwood image database to help you identify this species, the EDDMapS county map, and then a map of where this species exists on state lists or laws, and then links to invasive listing sources. So as you see, Japanese honeysuckle is kind of a big deal, and it shows up on a lot of different lists. The tools and training page, if we go to tools first, these are ways of looking up information, statistics, species status, different things that you might find useful. At the bottom, this is where you can find some of the resources relating to submitting or downloading data to us through files. The advanced query tool is a very well-used tool, people looking for specific data sets. So I'll just show you this real quick because again, it's highly used. The walkthrough is at the top. This is a new thing that we decided to let people know what these fields actually mean. So these parameters allow you to say, I need a data set with these species in this location with this date range and so forth. As you go through, you fill out the information you're interested in. You would click submit. On the next page, you would be able to see the data, and then you can also download it as an Excel file, a geo package, which is a type of geodatabase, or a KML. And so that way you can use the data and go through it as you would like. Then we'll go to the training page. So this is where you can see all kinds of training, as well as like past office hours videos I mentioned earlier, past EDDMapS Summit videos, and all kinds of training materials on how to report, how to do all kinds of things relating to EDDMapS, the EDDMapS app, and EDDMapS Pro. And a lot of these are in a variety of different formats: PowerPoints, PDFs, videos, so forth. The last thing I want to do right now is to go through some of the My EDDMapS. So when you click on My EDDMapS, it takes you to your dashboard. And this is showing you your reviewed data. This is the data that you would expect to be publicly available. You can, you know, go to a specific state, and if you do, it'll change all of the information. It's currently telling me I have 105 county reports, 99 point records, and 17 subjects that I've reported that are publicly available because they've been reviewed in the last year. It tells you the date range at the top. You can zoom in on the map to see this information. So there's a lot of reports for Tift County because that's where we work. That's where our center is. And then a scattering of reports up in the North Georgia area. If we scroll down, you can see these are my top subjects reported. So calorie pair, that's a big one, mimosa, brown anole, and so forth. You can see the breakout of the taxa types I report. So a lot of plants, a little bit of wildlife, a little bit of insects, and so forth. A brief overview of my statistics, how many reports I've submitted overall compared to this year, compared to this month. And then finally, scrolling down, these are my reports. It tells you the review status. So I've got some Joro spiders that still need to be reviewed. I've submitted a brown anole record recently that's already reviewed in public, and so forth. So you can click on these and it'll take you to the species the point record page, very similar to what you saw earlier. So this is what your dashboard looks like. If you are on the left side of the page, you'll see the dashboard has a little down arrow. There are 3 dashboards that could exist for you under this dashboard heading. My dashboard, which is what we're on right now, my verifier dashboard. I am an EDDMapS verifier. I can see my statistics for who I'm verifying for, the species I'm verifying, where the records occur that I'm verifying for, and so forth. And then the overall EDDMapS dashboard, which if I click on that, it might take a second to load, but it's more information. So it's all the data in EDDMapS, in this case for the last year, and it's a graphical way for you to see, you know, what's going on in EDDMapS. And so if you have a particular interest in a county, in a date range, so on and so forth, you can put these parameters in here and you can see, you know, in that time frame, what are the top reported species, who is reporting, you know, what's being treated and eradicated, where data is coming from. These are all types of graphics that are available to everybody for looking at all of the data in EDDMapS. If we go back to this bar on the right, I will note, if you're using a small screen, this this black bar will be reduced down to just this, this icon, this 3 line icon. So you might have to click on it to see the overall menu options. That is something we've talked about with people who have like smaller laptops and so forth, or tablets. So the My Reports section, I mentioned this earlier. This is where if I had submitted that report for Arian's Beard earlier, that's where this would show up, and it would say review to public, review to not public, so on and so forth. I can from here view a record, I can edit a record, I can revisit a record, and I can delete a record. So editing in some cases will potentially make this record need to be reviewed again. So if I changed the subject, if I changed the location, it's kind of important that that be potentially evaluated again. Revisit, if I went back to this location again and I saw more brown and nulls, or I saw no brown and nulls, I could revisit this record in this particular setup here and give additional information about what was going on, you know, several months later. And again, I can delete this record. So if I went, oh, no, that wasn't something I meant to submit or whatever, I can delete that record and remove it from the database. I mentioned revisits a couple times there. The revisits are currently in a separate page so that you can interact with those independently. Again, you can do same things, edit, delete, and so forth. Bulk uploads. So if I were uploading data, it would go through there. Again, these are files submitted usually by larger programs, not usually an individual person unless they are a person running a program. Downloads. So if I downloaded data through the advanced query tool, it shows up here. It tells me that I can download it, what the parameters were, and so forth. My species list. So this list is important in the EDDMapS Pro system. And it is something we can go over next week next month when I talk about EDDMapS Pro. My saved queries. So if you have a query you run a lot, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, you can save that query when you're in the advanced query tool. And then you can just run it again. So if I click test and open this page, it will say, you know, I looked for Chuck Bergeron's records in the US, and this is the results. These are where his records are. So if I go back, and you'll see that this is a saved query. That's where the button is. These saved queries are also used in EDDMapS Pro. And again, that's something we can talk about next month, not next week. Projects, that's something we'll talk about again next month. Again, we also have a whole EDDMapS office hours on projects, so you can go to the training page and look at that if you'd like there. Alerts. Anybody can set up alerts. So if you are responsible for the invasive species in your county, you can say, I want an alert for my county for, say, plants. You would create the alert and it would show up down here. And then daily, for records that meet your parameters, you would get an email with, hey, these are the records that came in that meet your parameters. You're just getting it once a day, any day that those parameters are met. You can request to be a verifier. So if you believe you have the education, training, responsibility, qualities to be a verifier, you can click this to request to be a verifier and fill out the information as best you can. References are extremely helpful, and let us know kind of what you would be a verifier for, what taxonomic scope, geographic scope, and so forth. Admin tools, this is where things like the review records page exists, the triage system exists. If you're a verifier, that's where you would go to look for records to verify. Bad Shape Fix, that's a tool that I use to repair shapes and so on and so forth. Most people, if they're going to have options under admin tools, it'll be review records and the triage system. The EDDMapS Pro Tools, this is where the rest of the EDDMapS Pro Tools exist. And again, that's something we can go over next week. And then again, surveys and labs, most people aren't going to interact with those. Those are for very specific partners that we do work with. So I think that covers most everything I wanted to cover. Again, this is a very surface level type intro into the EDDMapS. So not in depth on anything. I do want to say that I mentioned EDDMapS Pro a couple of times. We also have the Not Pro app called EDDMapS. It's just the EDDMapS app. And that's where you can, in the field, report things you find. It's for, it has a field guide for helping you to identify species, and then you would save your records as you see things out in the wild, in nature. And then when you get back to your home, your office, whatever, then you can send your reports in when you have Wi-Fi. That way you don't eat up your data. So that the EDDMapS app is what I recommend for most people for reporting out and about. So it does look like we have a few questions.
And you actually just answered the first one, which, what about reporting from the field using a mobile device?
Yeah. So yeah, so it's called the EDDMapS app. And if we go to the home page, I believe if I scroll down slightly, yes. So you can find the EDDMapS app on the Apple Store and the Google Play Store and download it through there. And it's just called EDDMapS. There are a number of things that have EDDMapS in them, but it's just EDDMapS. It's like share prints or something.
And there is also EDDMapS Pro, but as Rebecca was mentioning, I mean, she essentially walked you around the all-you-can-eat buffet. She's shown you all the fine dishes that are in this buffet. Going into the extreme detail for it, we would be here for like 4 hours. Yeah. And I was on a 4-hour Zoom call yesterday. I only have so much tolerance for that. Yeah. EDDMapS Pro is one she's going to touch on next time. There's also that app. And for those going in the field, revisiting observations, doing management, there are a couple different ways. Yeah.
So I see questions about drawing polygons. Can you upload polygons when you report a sighting? Yes. So that was what I was showing earlier with the report sighting. Again, if we go to, I'm just going to pick a state here, just to get to the page. So again, you can report using a polygon on the website. So let's say this whole water body here is infested. We're just going to say all around the lake. All around this is infested. So there's that polygon, and I can submit that. On the app, on the EDDMapS app and the Pro app, you can draw a polygon as well. What that would look like is you're on the reporting form, and on the EDDMapS app, you're on the reporting form. There's a little map icon. If you tap on that map icon, you can select to drop a point somewhere or to draw a polygon. On the EDDMapS Pro app, it's slightly different. It's a whole different kind of setup, but you can draw polygons on there as well.
So if I made a mistake in my polygon, can I delete it and start over? Can I fix what's there?
Yes. So there's this clear map button right here. So that just got rid of the polygon there. In the app, you have either a delete or a trash or something where you can remove the existing polygon and redraw. So both of these have ways to do that. I believe if you submit a record, and it's in your My EDDMapS, I believe you can edit and redraw and everything polygons as needed as well.
Got another question. back when you were going through the categories of things you were reporting, would an aquatic invasive invertebrate be recorded under the bug category? Where do invasive fish line up?
So fish would be wildlife, and things like, there's like an invasive springtail or something, like aquatic water flea or something. Those would show up under insects. Now, insects is also going to have arachnids. I know, but you got to remember, this is for the public. They wouldn't understand it if we said arthropods, because arthropods would potentially also include crabs, which people would associate with wildlife. So insects is going to include your spiders, your mites, your ticks, things like that. So that's where things get a little funky, and we go back and forth all the time about what's the optimal way for our entire audience to find the thing to report or to find the information for. We get fussed at about this from different groups for any which way we split things up.
We do have a question. Someone went rogue and sent it in the chat, but
Okay.
I'll be nice and say it anyway. Can you upload multiple polygons in one record?
You can on the website, not on the apps. You have to be very careful. The example I showed earlier about the Forest Service, you saw those were multi-polygons, although that data did come in through the bulk upload concept. So you can draw multi-polygons on the website. You can also do lines on the website, which you can't do in the app. So let's say we'll just use these like fields here. I can draw multi-polygons. And then I think I can do here. The thing we run into a lot is that a lot of people don't pay attention to how they're drawing these polygons. You'll see polygons must be drawn clockwise to be valid. If one polygon is drawn and it's drawn the wrong way, our system automatically corrects for it. And until very recently, our system did not auto-correct for where you had multi-polygons drawn inside and outside and all that kind of stuff. I think we've got that fixed now, but it's better if you just draw each of the polygons you need clockwise. Just it's less strain on our system to fix things if they're already coming in accurately. But again, you can only do multi-polygons, you can only do lines in the website. On the app, you have two options. You have points, you can do 1 point, you can't do multi-points. You can do a point, or you can do a single polygon.
And the clarification that someone's asking on one of the questions is, you can draw them both. You can draw multiple polygons in one report on the web. In the apps, you can draw polygons. You
can draw one polygon for a record.
You can't draw multi-polygons on the app currently. It does get into an interesting issue of scale of how you're drawing these polygons. I occasionally have a report come in, and I'm the one that gets to deal with polygons when they go amok. And we try to automate some of the process of cleaning them up. We sometimes have people that I'm going to outline the boundaries of an entire national forest covering multiple counties.
Yeah.
That's cute. I like your ambition. However, we tend to work more on the infestation level. And when we get polygons that are, massive, it starts leading to some questions of, are you really saying that it's at a certain density over that entire space? What are you really trying to say with the record you're trying to send in?
Yeah.
So hopefully that handles the clarification of, yes, you can draw polygons. You can't draw multi-polygons.
Yeah.
In the
So, yeah, so a polygon is one shape. A multi-polygon is many shapes associated with one record. So what I demonstrated with the 3 blobs was a multi-polygon that was going to be associated with this one record. In the app, you can draw one shape for a record that you are creating, an observation. Someone's asking if this is recorded. Yes, this is recorded. So again, if I go to the training page, you'll see this is where you can sign up for EDDMapS 102. This EDDMapS 101 is soon going to come down to this past office hours, and these are the videos where you can again look at past office hours. So mentioned projects earlier. Here's the projects office hours you can watch if you went, ooh, projects. I need to know about that now, not in 1 month. So I see wanting to train foresters to use EDDMapS to map invasive species on our land. You have to have an account to submit data. You have to have an account to request data. Those are the things you need accounts for. You do not need an account. You need an account to create alerts and things like that as well. You do not need an account to just look at data. So if you just want to know where these species are, so let's say I'm interested in tansy ragwort, I do not need an account to just look at the maps. I do not need an account to look at the training materials and whatnot. You know, anything really having to do with data, either submitting or requesting, that's when you need an account.
Well, and we have realized that asking someone to make an account before they do something is one of those things that can be a bit of a barrier. So what we've done, and this is actually one of the webinars we did in the past on setting up a citizen science invasive species campaign, was that our forms for reporting where you're seeing something, if you're doing web reporting, are embeddable into other websites. We do it all the time because people will know your program better than they know what's this ed, or people mispronounce it, the EDDMapS systems. What is that? Why am I going here? What's going on? So a lot of times we empower other groups, they embed the form into their website. And if someone's not logged in when they go to make the report, at the bottom, we ask, what's your first name, last name, and email address? That's all I need to make an account. And so when they report, it looks, do they already have an account? No. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make them an account. And they're going to get some things going on through email with us for making sure they're aware of what's going on. It removes just a little bit of friction from getting people into it. And we'll probably talk more on that in the future of how to get past some of the barriers when you're working with different groups of getting them to participate in some of these projects.
And one thing I wanted to mention, since there's a lot of interest in polygons, we are currently testing and have partially implemented the ability to do a walk the polygon in EDDMapS Pro. So basically you hit start recording and it collects a point as you move around the location, either on foot or in a vehicle, if you're mapping a larger infestation. So that is something that I would call in advanced beta testing in the EDDMapS Pro app, and just since there's been a lot of questions about that, that is why we've done that. And to follow up on another question, there is not a way right now for the verifiers to edit a record submitted by somebody. You have to request that they make that edit. You can change the species reported if the species is wrong, but you cannot change the location information. And so, there's a number of reasons that are not worth getting into on why we have limited that feature.
It is possible for a person to change their own.
Mhm.
So yes, you can, that edit can be done, but as Chuck said, yeah. So the question, I think I've translated this right in my head. Is it the prescribed protocol to check the map and view for the invasive you want to report? Or so that you're not duplicating reports?
Yeah, I get what they're saying. So ideally, yes, you would check to see if someone else has reported that population before you attempt to report a population. We know not everybody has the ability to do that. Like if you're in a kind of a remote area and you're using the EDDMapS app, you might not be able to access the existing data. So you can save your record and report when you get back, or submit when you get back. Revisits are great because that way you don't have points stacked up on top of points. But unless we're talking about someone whose job it is to monitor the invasives in their county, other geographic area, we don't actually have a ton of stacked points. So it isn't something we've had to worry about a whole lot because it just hasn't. Now we have talked about the idea of essentially suggesting a record be a revisit to another record, but then we have to think about what are the parameters that would trigger that suggestion. If you have an animal that's seen, if the animal has a huge territory, that's going to be different than if you're talking about like snails or zebra mussels or something. If you're talking about plants, should a population be separated based on the property lines that exist? Should a forest and a park that have populations near each other, should that be one population or should they remain two populations? That kind of thing. So there's a lot of conversation we have about the concept of auto revisits. But if someone is standing on top of especially if they're using EDDMapS Pro, where you can download existing data, and that app, one of the major reasons that app exists is for the concept of revisiting existing data, then that's another situation entirely.
Well, I'd actually say, while that would be nice, go ahead and report.
Yeah, we're not expecting people to check to see if the population they found is already in the app, unless, again, they're completely embedded, entrenched in using EDDMapS as part of their job. Then, that's, if they're going out to the same population, they're going out to the same population multiple times a year for several years, then that's something we walk through with them, is the concept of revisits.
Right. And that's actually someone else's question. What about creating related records for retreatments or monitoring visits? Yes, that's a revisit.
Yeah.
You're going back to the same location at a point in time where, hey, there was already a record. I want to revisit what was going on at that location and say, I did a treatment, if we're actually doing management, or I looked at it and here's my new assessment of where it's at.
Yeah.
We have another question, and I think this actually gets to the pro versus not pro EDDMapS. Yeah. Is there a setting for viewing existing data in the field app?
Yeah, so in the EDDMapS app, if you have good signal, you can, when you're looking at species information, see the existing map. I know that's the case in Android. Chuck, is that the case in iOS?
Yeah, it's available in both.
Okay, all right. And then, so that's a live map. You would be looking at essentially let's let it load. You'd essentially be looking at this map. And so it's a live version of the map. With EDDMapS Pro, this EDDMapS Pro is intended to be a tool for some sort of professional to use when they're going out to do essentially parts of their job, which would involve monitoring, managing invasive species or pest species. So I'm, let's say I am the county weed coordinator for Tift County, Georgia. Before I go out to the field to do my work each day, I'm going to upload any data I have. If there's any still in my app, I'm going to refresh any data sets that I need that day. I'm going to refresh anything else that is relating to knowing, maps I might need, like background maps I might need, or project information or species lists, anything like that. You refresh everything. And then you go out in the field, and in the Pro app, you can interact with that snapshot of the data that you are interacting with that day. So you can filter the data on the map, you can revisit existing records, so on and so forth. We have on the training page, we have videos all about EDDMapS Pro. So you can see how to report original records, new records. You can revisit existing records, interacting with the filters and the maps and the settings and everything. We also have, there's a fairly new EDDMapS Pro app daily checklist so that you can make sure that you're doing everything you need on a daily basis. Walkthroughs, all kinds of stuff. There is no charge for Pro. It's a free app to use.
And
it's just different features.
The more she talks about Pro, you understand why it's a separate version.
Yeah.
If you were to tell a citizen scientist, oh yeah, well, first you have to download the app after you make your account, and then you have to download your species list, and then you have to load your data, and then maybe now you can go out and do something. It's like, no, they wanted a field guide. They wanted the ability to report. We kept it simple for the regular folks in EDDMapS.
Yeah.
So Pro
yes,
gets into all the steps because, like, well, you want to do this, and I want offline county level maps. I want data that I can use without cell coverage in the middle of nowhere. It's like, the more things you start qualifying you need in there, that's why that got created. It actually speaks to, for a lot of the folks we work with, we have a discussion with them on, so what's your audience? Are they folks that are still using flip phones? And the best you're going to get is them going over and reporting online on the web. All right, then let's set you up where you have your report forms, you have that workflow, and that's how you're going to probably interact with this audience. Versus, no, I've got folks, they all have smartphones. Heck, they all have tablets. And they really want to, like, go down the road of area-wide management. And if we could only all communicate, know where the weeds are, we could actually have proactive management plans. That's an entirely different world and user experience that you start having. So we spend a lot of time working with different audiences going, all right, no, really, what's your workflow like? We can have you try to conform to what we think you'll do, but that usually ends up badly for everyone involved. What are you trying to do? And we try to give some standard use cases so that people know, all right, citizen science, go this way, Pro, go this way. How do you make it all come together? I'm amazed at how much that changes across the country and by species. Working with entomologists, they're a little, I am one, so I get to say they're a little nutty at times. They sometimes want to collect some extremely detailed data that the folks dealing with plants are like, plant's still there, hasn't moved. It was a tree. It's not moving around. Other questions? I will say I have dropped into the chat the link to register for EDDMapS 102, where Rebecca's going to be going into more detail. I'm also dropping in there, if you're curious about what EDDMapS is doing in the ag world. Ag is a little different. That is coming up in March, and the EDDMapS Summit. If you want to register for that, which is getting into more of the use cases of how folks are using these things. You've got 3 opportunities there to jump on and see different perspectives that may work for what you're trying to do.
And I'm on the training page. So you get that through hovering over tools and training and then clicking on training. You'll see EDDMapS 102 is right there. So you can you can share that link with other people. If you miss the entry Joe put into the chat, it's there for now until it happens, and then it'll become a past office hours. And then on April 20th, we will be having the EDDMapS Summit for 2023. And again, we're not covering what is EDDMapS. We're not covering, oh, here's this feature that's existed for a few years now, like we will in the March office hours. It'll be kind of what's happened in the last year, what's kind of upcoming for us and our partners.
And if you haven't figured it out, we're pretty laid back and friendly folks. You can always reach out and contact us. We're happy to talk with you about what's going on, see what may work best. I'm always interested to see when someone has a new approach they want to try with something, and it's like, yeah, actually, this might work really well. Oh, you're doing biocontrols? Well, we have a whole section of stuff for doing biocontrol releases and following up on that. So let's see if this will work for you. So I've been amazed. Rebecca had in the beginning, launching in 2005. The places you'll go in 17 years of different applications of how do we get people to come to a common view of data on invasive species, share information between partners, and everybody succeeds. Everybody's taken forward by us working together, as opposed to siloing everything and leading to all that fun and excitement that it could be.
All right, so that's about the end of the webinar, and I'm not seeing any additional comments or questions. I do want to thank everyone for showing up and talking to us and listening to us. Again, we look forward to seeing at least some, maybe most, maybe all of you at the EDDMapS 102 in March 17th. It'll be the same time, 11 to noon Eastern. And like I said, we'll go over a lot of the things I said, and we'll go over that next time. Thank you for joining us.
Take care.